My name is Kevin Brookson, and this is my story. First, let me clarify that I am not related to any famous figures, although the irony of their behavior often makes me ponder why some people can't stay faithful while insisting on remaining married. So here I am, sitting on my back porch on a cool May evening, waiting for my soon-to-be ex-wife, who has just been served divorce papers at her workplace. I'm bracing myself for her reaction, but I can't predict exactly how she will respond because I believe she's lost her mind. It was only 3 weeks ago on April 28th that I discovered her infidelity. I'll circle back to that shortly. I chose the back porch for this confrontation because it is secluded. Our house sits on a 2-acre lot, so even if there were screaming, the neighbors wouldn't hear. Additionally, there's a private detective parked around the corner for my protection, in case things get out of hand. Laura Simmons is a smart and beautiful woman. We met in graduate school in Chicago. I was pursuing an MBA in medicine and public health, while she was studying to become a nurse anesthetist, CRNA. She spent 2 years working long, emotionally draining hours in the neonatal unit. CRNAs typically have more regular hours, usually from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. 4 days a week, with higher pay and less trauma. However, Laura has a tendency to get bored easily and constantly seeks something new. While we were enjoying a concert and she was planning our next weekend, I noticed her interest in anything novel, be it an app, a friend, or a restaurant. We discussed this during our courtship, and I made it clear that while I was fine with trying new things, I was a traditionalist when it came to marriage. I believed in finding novelty every day within the same relationship, if you put your heart into it. She never gave me a reason to think she disagreed. Due to her somewhat fickle nature, I insisted on a prenuptial agreement. She was not thrilled and felt insulted, but I explained it was a bilateral agreement protecting us both. Eventually, she signed it. The agreement was straightforward, a 50-50th split of wealth accumulated during the marriage, with each of us keeping 100% of what we brought in, and an 80-20th split in case of adultery. After signing, we barely thought about it again until recently. After our wedding, we moved from Chicago to Des Moines, Iowa. The low cost of living, strong economy, vibrant downtown, and excellent career opportunities in healthcare drew us in. Despite the cold winters, the mostly mild spring and fall, and the variable summer weather, Des Moines has always been pleasant, with cool evenings even on hot days. Plus, the sweet corn in July and August is delicious, and it's the birthplace of Pinterest creator Ben Silberman. In our 8 years together, we both found jobs we loved, built a beautiful home, and made friends we genuinely enjoyed. Until 3 weeks ago, I thought we had a solid marriage. Not perfect, but solid. Like every other couple, we had our disagreements. I prefer squeezing the toothpaste from the bottom, while she's more haphazard. She insists on washing the dishes every night, whereas I'm content to let them pile up for a few days. These trivial arguments were balanced by long evening walks, conversations on the porch, and spontaneous weekend trips to the cabin or concerts in Chicago, Minneapolis, or Dallas. We enjoyed each other's company and communicated openly and honestly, or so I believed. Both of us, at 34, were looking forward to becoming parents soon. You might be wondering if I'm a failure in bed, if Laura is breathtakingly beautiful and constantly pursued by other men, or if we've considered an open marriage. Did I miss the early signs that Laura might cheat? Did I cheat on her, and now she's retaliating? Is her lover irresistible like a Greek Adonis? Is she altering her financial situation? Let me address these questions one by one. First, Laura appeared genuinely happy with our life together. I've never been called the best, but I've always given my all and never heard any complaints from her. Second, she is a very attractive woman with a quick wit and a strong mind. She is of Irish-Italian descent, a blonde brunette standing 5 and 8 inches tall. Third, I can't recall any warning signals, but if I missed them, perhaps I deserve what happened for being inattentive. Maybe I should have paid more attention to her fascination with new things. Fourth, since we've been married, I've never touched another woman, aside from a friendly hello or goodbye hug. Fifth, the honest truth is that her lover is good-looking but not devastatingly handsome. He's about my height, 6'1", with a similar build, around 180 pounds, trim and strong but not ripped, with blonde hair and blue eyes. Sixth, he's only 28, a medical student who's been working in the operating room for the past 2 months. Seventh, He might have money someday, but since she makes $100,000 a year and I make twice that, the lure of cash, fancy cars, or a luxury home seems unlikely. He won't start earning serious money for at least another 10 years. So, as you can imagine, I'm still baffled about how we ended up here. Let me share what happened over the last 3 weeks. It was the last week of April, and I was out of town for 3 days for a conference of medical administrators in Kansas City. I was supposed to be there for 4 days, but after reviewing the workshop offerings for the final day, I found nothing that interested me. The week had already been productive. On the first day, I met 3 other administrators from my region in similar positions. We formed a small group, met each night to compare notes, enjoyed good camaraderie, networked, exchanged contact information, and laughed over a few beers. On the third day, I informed them that I was leaving first thing in the morning. Since the trip takes less than 3 hours, I chose to drive instead of flying. Highway 50 is a relatively quiet highway with less traffic than most. On the drive, I listened to Dan Carlin's Hardcore History podcast about World War I. Kansas City has a wonderful World War I museum, thanks to Missouri's only president, Harry Truman. Carlin's podcast provided some background before I toured the museum. Since I was driving, I had the flexibility to leave at my convenience. Thinking I was on my way home to my loving wife, who would be starting her first day of a 3-day break, I got up early and was on the road by 5 a.m. I planned to wake her up pleasantly around 8 a.m. when I arrived home. However, when I pulled into the driveway, her car, a 2018 Honda Accord with crystal black pearlescent paint, was missing. She never parks in the garage unless it's raining, and it hadn't rained in a week. If the car wasn't in the driveway, it meant she wasn't home. I was puzzled. We work out at the same gym, Lifetime Fitness, so she wouldn't be out for a run. She usually sleeps in on her first day off, but when I entered the house, I didn't find her. The bed was made, which never happens unless it's Saturday laundry day. There were no leftovers from the previous night's dinner in the fridge. This was suspicious. I called her, but it went straight to voicemail. Fortunately, we both have the Glimpse app on our phones, a navigation tracking system that works on any iPhone. I opened the app and saw her phone was near the airport. We live in northeast Des Moines, near a private golf course called the Harvester. We both love golf and chose our home partly to join this club. The airport is on the southwest side of town. Feeling increasingly nervous, I decided to play it cool if she answered. I just asked how she was doing and not reveal my suspicions. I figured she wouldn't think to check Glimpse to see my location this early in the day. I waited 15 minutes and called again. She answered, and that's when my world started to crumble. "Hey, babe," she said in a sleepy voice. "Why are you calling me so early on my day off?" "I'm sorry, Laura," I apologized, somehow keeping my composure. "I miss you, and I had some time before my morning seminar. Just wanted to hear your voice." From the background noise, I realized she was sitting up in bed, not our bed. "It's okay, Kevin. I'm always happy to talk to my favorite husband. Looks like you're still in bed," she said, trying to sound casual. "So I won't keep you up. I just wanted to say I love you, and I'll be home no later than dinner tomorrow night. Unless you want me to skip the last day and rush home?" "That would be wonderful, but I'm planning to run errands as soon as I get up and have dinner with Pam and Kristen tonight. We arranged it 2 weeks ago, so I can't cancel." Pam and Kristen were 2 of her co-workers. She didn't give any indication she wasn't at home in our bed, so I had to think quickly. "Okay, babe, I'll let you go. Hey, before you hang up, could you check the top drawer of my nightstand for the pen you gave me for my birthday? I can't find it, and I'm worried I lost it." "Kevin, honey, I really want to go back to sleep. Can I check it later and call you back before lunch?" Wrong answer. She usually said something like, "I'll check, but I'll be mad if it's not there and you lost my gift." My heart pounded, but I kept my composure. "Sure, Laura, just don't forget to check. Sorry again for waking you." "Thanks, babe. I'll call you in a little while. Love you." I couldn't bring myself to say, "I love you too." I hung up, headed to my car, and hoped for a miracle, but expected the worst. It was a 40-minute drive from our house to the airport. I made it in 30, lucky not to get pulled over for speeding. Every time I checked the app, her phone hadn't moved. If she saw I was getting close, we'd have a huge fight, but I was sure she was too engrossed in her new experience to check my location. The GPS led me to the hotel near the airport. I parked at the far end of the lot, away from the few cars in front of the hotel. Then I realized she'd recognized my car, so I moved to the adjacent hotel lot, choosing a spot where I could watch entrance without being seen. I had no plan. I fought back tears, wondering if she was really cheating on me, and if so, why? Had she thrown away 8 years of what I thought was a strong, committed relationship? Could there be an innocent explanation for her lies and deceit? If she wanted to pamper herself until I got home, why not go to the Radisson downtown or somewhere with a hot tub and pool at home? This hotel was only 10 minutes away, and she adored her. None of this added up to innocence. I agonized for about an hour when she finally showed up with Robert Hughes. They held hands and exchanged loving kisses as they headed for the exit. Damn, that young medical student was entertaining my wife. I snapped a few quick photos on my phone as they shared a more passionate kiss before jumping into his car. I met Robert about 2 months ago at a hospital appointment. I usually get along with people easily, but Robert seemed like a bit of a jerk. When Laura introduced us, he squeezed my hand extra hard, as if to prove he was the alpha male. My dad always taught me to look my conversation partner in the eye and offer a firm handshake, so I wasn't impressed. Our small talk was contrived, and he constantly smirked. I mentioned this to Laura on the way home, and she dismissed it, saying, "You hang out with doctors a lot, and you know they can be narcissistic. Robert's not like that." Now, watching my marriage crumble in the parking lot, I struggled to control my emotions. What should I do? Confront them? Hire a private investigator? I had to think clearly. Problem solving is a big part of my job, so I forced myself to calm down and think. After a few minutes, I came up with a plan and decided to take a chance. When they left the hotel, they didn't have any overnight bags. It seemed they weren't checking out, but perhaps grabbing a bite to eat before returning for more. I followed the Glimpse app and saw they had stopped about 2 miles away at a local diner. I knew I had a few minutes to act. I walked back into the lobby, which was thankfully empty, except for a middle-aged woman at the front desk. She looked up and smiled as I approached. "Good morning. How can I help you?" I noticed she wore a wedding ring, and her name tag read, Susan. "Hi, Susan. I'm Kevin. I have a problem, and I'm hoping you can assist me." "Nice to meet you, Kevin. I'll do my best to help. Do you have a reservation or need to check in early?" "No, Susan," I replied quietly and seriously. "The couple that left about 15 minutes ago, a brunette woman and a younger blonde man, did you notice them?" Her smile faded, replaced by a more serious expression. "Yes, I noticed them. What's the issue?" "Susan, the woman is my wife, and the young man works with her. Unfortunately, I believe they are having an affair." "Oh, sir, I'm not sure how I can help," she said, looking concerned. "Most people here in Iowa are friendly, but tend to mind their own business." "Susan, I need to look in the room they're using. I promise not to cause any trouble or make a scene. I just need to confirm my suspicions. I don't need a key. Someone from housekeeping can let me in and ensure I'm out quickly. I just need to see. I know this is a lot to ask, but I see your wedding ring and I hope you understand." Susan thought for a moment. "You seem sincere. The couple did strike me as odd, but I usually mind my own business. However, I can see you're really troubled. Can you give me the woman's name?" She booked the room with her credit card. "Sure. Her name is Laura Brookson, and she likely used an American Express Gold card. I can provide the number if needed." "I appreciate your discretion." That seemed to do the trick, and a moment later the number was confirmed. "Can you call housekeeping?" I asked. "No need," she replied. "Andrew!" she called loudly. Andrew, a porter, appeared from around the corner. "Yes, Susan?" "Andrew, I'm stepping away from the desk for about 5 minutes. I'll be on the 3rd floor. You're in charge until I return." Andrew looked like he'd just been given a major responsibility. "Yes, ma'am." Susan winked at me and motioned to follow her. We rode the elevator to the 3rd floor in silence. Neither of us knew what to say. We walked down the hallway and stopped in front of room 319. Susan held the key card to the reader. I hoped it would flash red and not let me in, but it turned green. I entered the room and Susan stood in the doorway keeping watch. The room was a mess, with clothes strewn about, a man's casual button-down shirt, khakis, loafers, and a belt on one side of the bed. Moving to the far side, I saw what I dreaded, the light beige blouse I bought for Laura and a short, dark blue skirt. Trying to stay focused, I decided to document the scene. I'm not a lawyer, so I didn't realize an attorney might argue this was all staged by me. Ignorant of this, I recorded a quick video, narrating as I went. I'm in room 319 of the Des Moines Airport Hotel. It is 5:21 a.m. on Thursday, April 28, 2022. This room was booked by my wife, Laura Brookson, using her American Express Gold Card. Last night, she checked in with Robert Hughes, a medical student from her hospital. The state of the room suggests they spent the night together. I saw them leave the hotel earlier, kissing and holding hands. I have photos as evidence. I glanced into the bathroom but found nothing significant. Before leaving, I took a few items that might be useful for DNA testing. It might unsettle Laura if she noticed they were missing. As Susan and I rode the elevator back down, tears started to well up. Susan, trying to comfort me, placed a hand on my shoulder. "I'm sorry, Mr. Brookson." We stepped off the elevator, and I reached for my wallet. "Don't even think about it," she said firmly. I smiled weakly, thanked her, and added, "If you see them, please don't mention that I was here." With a small smile and a wink, she replied, "I've never seen or heard of you. Insinuating otherwise would be an insult." Realizing my plan had run its course, I pondered my next move. Despite my lack of legal knowledge, I knew acting too quickly could backfire, even with the prenup. The silver lining was that I wasn't expected home until late Friday, giving me time to think. Since I was already on the south side of town, I drove another 30 miles southeast to Winterset. About 40 minutes later, I found myself at Rudy's restaurant on John Wayne Drive. Winterset, John Wayne's hometown, even has a small museum in his honor. My father, a John Wayne aficionado, used to bring my brother and me here when we were kids. Sitting in a back booth, I began to formulate my next steps. I noticed a quote from one of John Wayne's movies on the wall. In The Rifleman, Wayne played an aging gunfighter dying of cancer, determined to die with his boots on rather than let the disease consume him. I won't be hurt. I won't be insulted. I won't have my hand raised on me. I don't do that to other people and demand the same from them. While I'm not as big of a John Wayne fan as my dad, I'm more of a Clint Eastwood guy from the outlaw Josie Wales. I chuckled and said out loud, "Damn right, Pilgrim." The waitress who approached my table heard my best Wayne impression. She rolled her eyes and said, "So, young man, would you like a snack?" I ordered coffee and a big breakfast. Something about enjoying a meal made me feel a bit better. As I ate, I read several articles about cheating spouses. According to experts, this was probably not an isolated incident. It was unlikely they would be so comfortable with each other if it had been a drunken one-night stand. Statistically, in the U.S., women who cheat on their husbands rarely do it only once. It had probably been going on for a long time, but I had no proof. That was about to change, so I started making a list. There was no way I would stay married to a cheating wife even if it was a recent affair. I could forgive, but all trust was lost forever. I needed to hire someone to help me get proof. Even with a prenup, I needed solid legal advice from someone who understood the financial side. I also needed to get tested for STDs. If Robert Hughes had been involved, infection was a risk. I had about 36 hours to take action. I finished my breakfast and left a $50 tip for a $16 meal, hoping to make at least one person's day better. Before leaving, I texted Laura. "Sorry, found my pen at the bottom of my satchel." A moment later, she replied, "Lucky for you." Tempted to send a harsh response, I typed 6 words, "Screw you, cheating." But I didn't send it. Instead, I replied, "Uh-huh." 2 hours later, I found myself at the office. I had met Carter at a charity event and knew he practiced family law. He returned my call and listened to my story. "I'm sorry to hear that, Mr. Brookson." "I appreciate that, Mr. Carter. Please call me Kevin." "Fine, Kevin. I'm Michael. Mike to my friends and clients, so call me Mike." "Thank you, sir." "Kevin, I'm not nitpicking, but legally your situation is challenging. The lack of children helps, but the lack of fault means you may need counseling or discussions for the court to determine if the marriage is truly broken. If the prenup was drafted properly, you may avoid financial loss, but that's uncertain. I want to refer you to my partner, Jack Foster. He's a specialist in divorce and will handle your case best. Let me connect you with his assistant, Megan, to set everything up." An hour later, I was in Jack Foster's office. He lived up to his name, a short guy, probably 5'10", and around 130 pounds. He was an avid swimmer with several school records in Indiana. Despite his size, he exuded confidence and competence. He listened carefully to everything I said, asked a few clarifying questions, and suggested some initial strategies. Are they still at the hotel today? I don't know. Don't worry, I can find out. He picked up the phone. Megan, put me through to Emma. Tell her I need to know if Laura Brookson has booked room 319 at the hotel in Des Moines by tomorrow morning. If so, I need a full report by noon tomorrow. And tell her not to miss a thing. Yes, I know it'll annoy her, but that's part of the fun. He hung up the phone. Emma Collins is the best private investigator this side of Chicago. She worked in Chicago for 18 years before moving to Des Moines. If they're there today, we'll have details by tomorrow. He agreed I should get tested for STDs, but was concerned about how long the results would take. He assumed Laura might want to cover her tracks by being sexually active with me. I assured him I knew several doctors who might expedite the tests, cutting the usual 10 days to 2 or 3. I called my friend Dr. Alex Martin and asked if I could come by in the morning. Jack also set me up with a forensic accountant from their practice. The next morning, he handed me a list of what I needed to bring, including our prenup. Finally, he said, if your wife changes her plans and comes home tonight, don't confront her. We'll address it when we have all the facts, which won't be until next week at the earliest. If my hunch is right, it will take a couple of weeks to establish infidelity. It may not help in court, but it won't hurt either. Most Des Moines judges still disapprove of infidelity, so be on your best behavior, be polite and courteous. If she wants to get intimate, pretend to be sick. Otherwise, it's business as usual. Okay, so you're telling me that calling her out and hitting Robert with a baseball bat is off limits? Yeah, something like that. Anything stupid would sink us. Got it, you have my word. We shook hands and I left. I wish I could say I knew how to handle the pain, but that would be a lie. Still having my clothes from the trip, I didn't need to go home. I went to another gym, paid for a day pass, and worked out for about 2 hours until I was exhausted. Then I took a long steam and shower before checking into the Hyatt Hotel downtown, where I immediately ordered room service, including a bottle of Maker's Mark. After my second drink, I turned off my phone and put it away, knowing that once I got drunk, things could only go downhill from there. I didn't want to risk calling my wife while drunk and emotional, so I hid my phone. Tears, anger, frustration, and more tears followed until I passed out. The next morning, I woke up around 7 with the worst hangover since college. Forcing myself to the gym, I took a long, steamy sip from my Yeti glass, filled with ice and more Maker's Mark. Whoever coined the phrase, hair of the dog that bit you, must have known something because after my shower, I felt almost human again. I spent an hour at the local Starbucks with my laptop, compiling a financial report for the accountant. By 8:30, I was in Dr. Martin's office. I explained the situation to him, and he drew my blood himself. I'll personally take it to the lab and have the results back to me. I'll have to put your name on them, but doctor-patient confidentiality will keep them secure until you need them in court. Not your first rodeo, Doc. Hell no, buddy, he replied. It seemed like everyone around here loved John Wayne. I may have the results by tomorrow or Monday at the latest. I can't rush the lab staff too much. No worries. Thanks, Alex. Back at the office, I sat down with Grace Mitchell. She spent the better part of 2 hours digging through my financial life. It was as enjoyable as a prostate exam. When we finished, she took a deep breath and summarized. Well, Mr. Brookson, there's good news and bad news. The prenup covers 80% of your assets in the event of adultery, but I don't see you getting more than 50% of the house. You can avoid alimony and won't pay it, but you may have to split retirement and savings. I'll prepare a full report for Jack by the end of the day. I thanked her and headed upstairs to meet Jack Foster again. He was chatting with a woman who looked to be in her late 40s. Emma Anderson was a pleasant-looking woman with short brown hair, deep brown eyes, and a friendly smile. Her handshake was firm, and her gaze was penetrating. I felt compelled to be honest with her. I also noticed a gun on her belt, which made me think, note to self, never mess with this woman. After a brief exchange of pleasantries, Emma got straight to the point. Mr. Brookson, your wife is in a relationship with medical student Robert Hughes. Thanks to a helpful woman named Susan, I was able to install audio-visual devices in their room at the hotel. She paused and looked up from her notes. By the way, Susan mentioned she has a lovely niece in Cedar Bluffs if you're interested in the future. I turned some of the video footage into photographs and enhanced the images to make your wife's identity unequivocally undeniable. They returned to the hotel around 1 o'clock yesterday afternoon and stayed until 6 o'clock when they went out for dinner. They ate at a Chinese diner in West Des Moines and returned to the hotel around 8 o'clock. According to my contact in the lobby, they checked out of the hotel around 10 o'clock. Robert got into his car, and Laura got into hers. She went home and is still there. Emma handed me a large file folder. There are pictures and a thumb drive with videos. I don't advise you to look at these, but if you do, give yourself time and space to deal with what you'll see and hear. I'm truly sorry, Mr. Brookson. I hate cheaters for what they are and the damage they do. I did a little digging on you, and it's clear you don't deserve this betrayal. She and Jack exchanged a few more remarks and ideas on how to proceed over the next few weeks to establish a pattern. Then she put on her jacket, shook my hand, wished me well, and walked out the door. Jack went to his cabinet and poured me a shot of Knob Creek Limited Edition to calm my nerves. I tipped it back in one gulp and prepared to continue our conversation. We discussed several aspects of the situation. I brought Jack up to speed on my blood tests, and we discussed the financial aspects of the impending divorce. What's your ultimate goal, Kevin? What's most important to you when this all settles? Jack asked. I thought for a moment. I want to leave as soon as possible. I can be patient and avoid doing anything stupid, but just the thought of being around her makes me sick. I need you to do everything you can to ensure the terms of the prenup are honored. I can deal with the division of the house and other small assets, but I don't want her coming out of this in a strong financial position at my expense. Also, I want to salvage my dignity. I want it known that she was unfaithful, not me. No irreconcilable differences. I don't want to go after the hospital. I work there too, and I don't see any fault on the part of it. But I do want it known that she broke up with me because she was having an affair with Robert Hughes behind my back. Lastly, I want to hurt Hughes. I don't know if you can convince the hospital to remove him from their program, but I'd love for him to end up driving a truck for the rest of his life. Jack responded thoughtfully. First of all, I think you're okay with the prenup. I'm cautiously optimistic. Second, we will make sure everyone knows the reason for the breakup. However, that doesn't preclude the court from ordering counseling to see if the marriage can be saved, assuming your wife isn't interested in divorce. Her attorney will likely behave aggressively, hoping to drag out the case to soften you up and get you to change your mind. Lastly, you should temper your expectations about Hughes's career suffering. You're right that the hospital can cut its losses, especially if incoming students sign a pledge regarding behavior during training, but don't get your hopes up on that. Kevin, you're going to have to go home soon. You might manage to stay away for most of the weekend, but you need to go back and play the happy husband like your life depends on it. If she gets a whiff of what you know, she might go on the offensive before we're fully prepared. I trust you won't go near Hughes under any circumstances. If you think you might crack, I'll have Emma assign someone to keep an eye on you. I assured Jack that I would behave, even if I had to bite my lip until it bled. It was early Friday afternoon when I left Foster's office. I sat in my car for 30 minutes, trying to figure out how to drive home without revealing everything. Seeing no way to succeed, I did the next best thing. Laura was expecting me home around 7. After driving about 90 minutes, I pulled into the small town and found a local tire shop. Behind the counter was a 40-year-old guy wearing a shirt with Mike embroidered on it. He looked content reading his Sports Illustrated and wasn't in the mood to work late on a Friday. "Can I help you?" he asked, sounding annoyed. "Yeah, I need 4 new tires," I replied. Mike sighed, clearly frustrated to be interrupted. He stood up and headed to my car. "These tires have at least 10,000 more miles. You don't need new treads," he said, looking disgruntled. "Look, Mike, I'm particular about my car and don't care about the price. Can you put new tires on it or not?" I insisted. He muttered to himself as he went back inside and started up his 2002 desktop computer. "Not today, but I can have them in by 10 o'clock tomorrow morning." He pulled out a small calculator. "With shipping, installation, and taxes, it'll cost you $14.55. "Great," I said. "Do it." He looked at me like I had 3 heads, but still typed the order. "Okay, all done. See you in the morning." Without waiting for a response, he went back to his magazine. I pulled back onto the highway and checked into the motel for the whopping sum of $80 a night. I flopped onto the uncomfortable bed and called Laura. "You're almost home, babe. I can't wait to see you," she said, sounding chipper after 2 days of fun with Robert. "Sorry, Laura. I lied. I blew 2 tires by running over some debris that fell out of a semi-trailer on the highway. I'm stuck in a little Missouri town. They can put new tires on in the morning, but I won't be home until midday tomorrow." In my mind, I added, "In case you want to invite Robert over tonight and sleep with him in our marital bed," but I didn't say it out loud. "Damn, Kevin, are you okay? Nothing hit the windshield or anything?" "No, I'm fine, but I'm having Taco Bell for dinner tonight and breakfast in the morning. Sorry for the delay, Laura." "Me too, but the important thing is that you're okay. I miss you madly and was hoping to jump on your bones tonight." "Yeah, me too," I replied, feeling the sting of her betrayal even more acutely. "I think I can wait until tomorrow. Please be safe for the rest of the trip and come home to your loving wife as soon as possible," Laura said. "I will, Laura. I'm sorry, but I'm a little tired and still a bit woozy from the blowout. I'm going to drink these 2 bottles of beer I bought at the Jiffy Mart and go to bed. I'll see you tomorrow." "Okay, Kevin. I love you." "Good night," she responded. I knew that at some point, I'd have to lie and say, "I love you too," with sincerity in my voice. But it wouldn't be tonight. I had no way of knowing if she picked up on my lack of response. But at that moment, I didn't care. I walked over to the desk and opened the envelope Emma had given me. It showed my wife cheating on me with Robert. After recovering and brushing my teeth, I went back to the scene of the crime and inserted the flash drive. Opening the program, I saw an entire video of my wife having fun with Robert. After an hour of excruciating emotional pain, I began to feel the rage building up inside me. Yes, I was heartbroken. Her selfishness and disrespect couldn't fully describe what I had just witnessed. My anger at Robert would surely grow, but at that moment, I was filled with white-hot anger at the woman who I thought loved me and had committed to being my faithful wife. In the 8 years of our marriage and the year before that when we were engaged, I had never seriously considered being with another woman. I don't mean to say that I never looked or had a fleeting thought about other women, but it never occurred to me to break my vows or hurt her with adultery. I began to remember how the prenup had bothered her. She was offended that I had even suggested she couldn't be trusted. I now realized that she was a narcissist, concerned only with herself and her pleasure. She didn't understand the kind of commitment I thought love required. So yes, this revelation broke my heart, but I was also furious. There was no way this was going unheeded. No way. The next couple of weeks were going to be tough, but screw her. I would play my part, all with the intention of getting away from her as soon as possible, and Robert would pay too. The next morning, I had a couple of fast food tacos for breakfast. 2 cups of coffee helped wash that taste away as I headed out to meet Mike and pick up 4 new tires. In the morning, Mike was less grumpy. He smiled when I walked in. I guess he realized he could sell my tires for a few $100 in cash and pocket it without the IRS finding out. On the wall hung a couple of deer heads and a picture of him squatting next to a dead deer with a bow across his lap. Maybe he'd use the money to buy himself a new compound bow for the next season. For some reason, the thought made me feel a little better. By 11:30 a.m., I had 4 new tires, and I was out of excuses to avoid heading home. During the ride, I started thinking about how I could mess with Laura's head. The thought of touching her made me cringe. Before heading home, I made one stop. I pulled up to the house around 1:30 p.m. Laura's car was in place. I walked in the front door and heard Siri playing some light jazz. I rounded the corner and walked into the kitchen where Laura, swaying to the beat of the music, was washing dishes. She must not have heard me come in. I grabbed her. "Damn, Kevin, you scared the hell out of me. Let me go, you bastard," she exclaimed. I just left a mark on her neck. Maybe it would be Robert's turn to be jealous. Surprises and novelties, yes. Neanderthal, no. "What the hell, Kevin? You're going to embarrass me in the operating room on Monday. That's not what I meant, Kevin. It's just that you scared me. I guess I overreacted. I'm so glad you're home. Come on, let's go upstairs." I instantly let her go, turned around, picked up my bag, and headed up the stairs. "Just forget it, Laura. Maybe you can tell the gang that your idiot husband got carried away and rudely hurt your feelings." I had never spoken to Laura like that before, and since I was standing with my back to her, I couldn't see her reaction. All she said was, "Whatever you say." I unpacked my bag, took a quick shower, changed into my Saturday clothes, and headed downstairs. When I got downstairs, Laura was sitting at the kitchen table, texting. She put her phone face down on the table and looked up at me. There was no forgiveness in her eyes, but the anger had dissipated. I guessed who she was texting with. "Laura, I've been gone for a week, 2 days longer than intended. All I could think about was getting back to you, but apparently my attempt to spice up the relationship didn't meet with your approval. You were the one who told me to hurry home so you could jump on my bones. I apologize for not understanding how that was supposed to happen. Enjoy the rest of your day and evening. I'm leaving." I didn't give her time to respond. I just walked out the door, got in my car, and drove away. I went to the clubhouse, changed into casual golf clothes, and hit a couple of bags of balls. After that, I worked on my pathetic pitch. Sadly, I thought that with the advent of bachelorhood, I'd have more time to shave a couple of strokes off my game. Unfortunately, given the circumstances, that didn't improve my mood much. A couple of hours later, I settled into the men's locker room, grabbed a beer, and chatted with a handful of fellow golfers. One of them was David Brooks, a local investment banker and a good friend. While we talked, I learned that his wife, Julie, was out of town for the weekend visiting relatives. I invited him over for dinner. We went to the tavern downtown just as it opened at 4 p.m. We had a couple of glasses of bourbon and sampled their top-notch burgers. They were showing the Cardinals and Mets game on the big screen. With all my hectic life, eating a burger and discussing pitching staffs with a friend made me feel a little piece of normalcy, and for that, I was grateful. We left around 7 p.m., and I checked my cell phone. There were 6 text messages from Laura, about 30 minutes apart, starting an hour after I left. "Kevin, I'm so sorry. Please come home so we can talk. Kevin, where are you? Come home, stop ignoring me. Kevin, I know you're seeing these messages. Come home now. Kevin? Okay, but don't say I didn't ask you to come home. I'm not the one acting like a stubborn ass." I thought to myself, "You're just the lying, cheating one." I didn't respond. Instead, I went to the local movie theater and saw a new film called Firestar, about a girl who discovered she could set things on fire with her mind. I wished I could have found her and taken her to Robert. The movie ended just before 10 p.m., and I headed home. As I pulled up to the house, I saw that Laura's car was gone. I can't say I was disappointed, but I also realized she was probably being comforted by her lover. I went back to the club and had a couple of drinks for the night, then got home around 11:30. Laura was sitting in our bed. "Kevin, I can't believe you left and didn't answer my text. Where did you disappear to?" Her tone was firm, indicating she considered herself the offended party. "Well, I went to the club, had dinner with David Brooks, watched a movie, came home, went back to the club again since you weren't here, then came back home. And you?" She lowered her eyes, not meeting my gaze. "Nowhere in particular. Have you been with anyone?" "Not really. Met a friend at coffee shop." "Who?" "Does it matter? We need to talk about what happened earlier." "Okay, talk." "Kevin, I'm sorry I reacted the way I did, but your aggression scared me and threw me off balance. Your groping and stroking didn't turn me on. Part of my love for you is based on how much you respect me, and your actions didn't feel like love and respect." "Laura, I admit my actions were different, but the fact that you asked me to spice it up seemed to indicate you wanted something more radical in our physical relationship. If that's not it, then explain so I can understand where you're coming from." That's what I said, but I was thinking more romantic. A candlelit dinner or a weekend at the beach with lots of hugs and caresses. "I'm sorry, Laura, but we've done all those things many times over the last 8 years. Weekend getaways, long walks holding hands, romantic conversations by the fireplace. I don't believe what you're saying. It doesn't add up." "It's true, but maybe in new places." "Nonsense, Laura. I remember our conversation very well. You can't rewrite history. If you've changed your mind, say so, but don't lie and pretend you weren't suggesting I spice things up physically." "Kevin, why are you acting like this? You're so literal and dogmatic. I may have said it, but how can you interpret it as bending me over the counter or leaving a bruise on my neck for everyone to see?" "Laura, Do you remember what you were wearing when we had that conversation? No, why does it matter? It's relevant. I was working in the yard, had just showered, and came out of the bedroom. I'm pretty sure we didn't come up for air for at least the next hour. How do I go from that to a romantic weekend on the beach holding hands? I'll let you pick 10 husbands of your choice. Tell them this story and ask how they would interpret your invitation. If at least 9 of them don't say something like what I did today, I'll buy you any new car you want. That's just ridiculous, Kevin. No, not only is it not absurd, it's absolutely accurate. When you dress up for your husband and ask him to spice things up, it's not because you're in the mood for romance. You're trying to change what happened to make you right and me wrong. Kevin, your stubbornness is getting us nowhere. Why don't we just let it go and you come to bed and just hold me? Sorry, Laura, that won't work. If you don't like that kind of behavior from me, fine, I won't try again. But don't act stupid and pretend it's my fault. You care more about people seeing that I gave you a hickey than you do about my feelings or opinion. I'm not interested in keeping you. Assume I've admitted I was wrong. Good night, Laura. With those words, I turned and headed for the guest bedroom. Come back! I'm not done talking to you, damn it! She shouted. I ignored her, assuming my first attempt had been successful. I avoided contact with her without giving myself away. I highly doubted she was putting 2 and 2 together. She was too shy to even flirt with the idea that I knew she was cheating on me. There had been chilly days in our marriage, but on Sunday we just froze. We avoided each other and didn't talk. I spent most of the morning at the club and the afternoon working in the yard. I went to bed before she did, and when she came into the bedroom, I was already in bed. I'm not sleeping in the same bed with you until you apologize, Kevin. I don't mind, Laura. I'm not the unreasonable type, so I think we'll spend every other night in the master bedroom. It's my bed as well as yours, so I'll sleep here tonight. If you don't like it, you know where the spare room is. David Oro night, I'll sleep there, and you can be here. I don't agree to that. Go and sleep in the guest room until you come to your senses. Laura, I have no idea why you think you have the last word on everything, but you don't. We are equals, and I treat us as such. I'm going to sleep in this bed tonight, and what you do is up to you. Bastard, she hissed as she left for the guest room. The beginning of the week went the same way. We barely spoke to each other. She kept trying to push my buttons, but I couldn't deal with it. Monday night, she told me how she had been humiliated in the operating room when her coworkers teased her about a hickey. I shrugged, showing that I didn't care. Tuesday morning, Dr. Alex Martin called and asked me to stop by his office. First, the bad news. You have a very mild form of chlamydia. You probably haven't experienced any symptoms. More than half of men who contract the disease do not. The good news is that with treatment, the disease will go away quickly, although you will need to be rechecked in about 3 months. Maybe I should ask if you know how you contracted it. Of course, Alex. I contracted it from my wife. I trust our doctor-patient confidentiality is respected here. I've never slept with another woman since the year before Laura and I got engaged. Last Thursday, I found out she was having an affair with another man. I can only assume she contracted it from him, unless she's had other lovers that I don't know about. He heard the sadness in my voice. Well, I'm sorry as hell to hear that, Kevin. I always thought you had a good marriage. I'll put you on your usual dose of antibiotics. And like I said, it should go away without a problem. You'll need to tell Laura about it and abstain from sex for the next few weeks, just to be safe. No, it's not a problem, Alex, but I'm going through a serious transition here, and I'll need to talk to a lawyer about sharing this information with my wife. How serious could the infection be? It doesn't kill, but if left untreated, it can cause serious health problems, up to and including the loss of a woman's ability to reproduce. Depending on when Laura contracted the infection, she could be at risk. A couple of weeks isn't a problem, but the longer it goes untreated, the higher the risk. Besides, Kevin, as much pain as you're in, you don't want to live with the responsibility of jeopardizing someone else's health. You're right, Alex. I can't live with myself if I sink to that level just because I'm in pain. But let me ask you this. I haven't noticed any symptoms in her, so is it safe to say it's still early, and she doesn't know what she's contracted yet? Maybe, maybe not. Some women never feel symptoms, but that doesn't mean the disease can't do serious damage. I can't tell you what to do in that case, but I will say that waiting more than 48 hours would be wrong. We shook hands, and he said he would take the prescription to the local pharmacy, which I didn't frequent. I appreciated his concern for my reputation. An hour later, I was in Jack Foster's office explaining everything to my attorney. He laughed at my strategy but warned me not to be so obvious as to give myself away. He became much more serious when he heard about the STD. "Well, that changes things," he said with a sigh. "I know we lawyers get a bad rap, but even I can't afford to keep anyone in the dark when there are serious health risks involved." It was my turn to chuckle at his joke. Since Dr. Martin gave me 48 hours, I'd better act in 24. Let me consult with a couple of colleagues I respect, and I expect you here tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. Laura didn't get home until about 10 o'clock that evening. Her shift ended at 6 o'clock. If she expected me to demand to know where she'd been, she was in for a disappointment. I was watching an episode of Only Murders in the Building when she walked in. She looked into the den for a moment, sighed, and headed upstairs without saying a word. Under any other circumstances, she would have sat next to me and munched on popcorn while I brought her some white wine. The thought that this would never happen again for the rest of my life caused me to feel an overwhelming sense of loss. I was betrayed, and I wasn't going to stay with the cheater who betrayed me in our marriage. But I loved her. A part of me still did, and that part grieved for what was gone forever. The next morning, I sat in the conference room with Foster, Emma's private investigator, and lawyer Mick Sawyer. "Kevin, it's time to act. Everyone agrees STDs changed the picture. How do you want to tell her?" "I want to keep her off balance. What if I anonymously tip her OBGYN that Laura Brookson has chlamydia? The doctor would be obligated to inform her. Later you could confirm it was me. I'd be acting in good faith." Foster thought it over. "Not perfect, but not terrible. It will make you look petty, but not negligent. I still think it's a bad idea." "Agreed," said Emma and Mick. "I'm determined. I'll send the message to Dr. Lisa Bennett today." "I want to witness it," Emma insisted. We discussed a few more details, and I left. 40 minutes later, Dr. Bennett received the anonymous message. Emma followed Laura to the pharmacy where she picked up a prescription. Later, Laura returned home. We still didn't talk much. She sat next to me on the porch, looking defeated. "Why don't we call a truce?" she asked. "How do you propose we declare a truce?" I responded. "Let's just end this argument." "I'm not sure that works for me, Laura. You still don't think you've done anything you need to apologize for." "I'm really sorry about that." "No, Laura, it's not okay. Your words may be right, but your tone shows your heart hasn't changed." She glared at me and stomped off. It had been almost a week since I discovered her betrayal. The next 2 weeks would be nearly impossible. It was time to look for options. The next morning, I was in my boss Julie Silverton's office, explaining my situation. She was professional but caring, promising her support. "There's a conference for hospital CFOs in Washington, D.C. next week. Attend it and then stay the weekend with your family." "Deal, boss? Thank you for your kindness." With her support, I focused on work, even pissing off the nurses' union representative. On the way home, I called my family to let them know I'd visit. I also updated attorney Jack Foster, who suggested gathering more evidence of Laura's treachery. When I arrived home, Laura was absent, so I went for a run to clear my head. Exhausted, I returned home, watched TV, and went to bed. The next morning, I noticed Laura's door was closed, signaling she had returned during the night. I continued my routine, avoiding contact with her. Sunday, I left for the conference without informing Laura. While there, I received a call from Jack, confirming more evidence of Laura's infidelity. Surprisingly, Laura texted me, upset I hadn't informed her of my trip. Our exchange was bitter. By the weekend, I spent time with my supportive family. My dad reassured me, "You'll get through this, son." Back at work, Julie was her usual stern self, but I appreciated the normalcy. I called Jack for an update and agreed to meet the next morning. At Jack's office, we discussed the plan. Emma had served Laura and her partner in front of their colleagues, causing a scene. Jack and I prepared for Laura's arrival, expecting a confrontation. She arrived, looking terrible. We argued, and I made it clear our marriage was over. 6 months later, we were divorced. My boss, Julie, reflected on my journey, noting that I was recovering and even noticing a new potential love interest. Laura became an outcast at the hospital and eventually moved to Denver, while her partner faced similar ostracism and moved to Kentucky. Life moved on for everyone.